Breaking news today. Russian state TV highlights Chinese technology on tanks en route to Ukraine. Some Chinese internet users have speculated that Russian tanks employ Chinese technology after seeing a social media post that cited Russian official television. A Weibo post from January 4 by Suzhou Ji-ting has raised questions over the possible military consequences of China and Russia trading technology. A Russian TV dramatization allegedly included a tank assembly line, with Wuhan Gaoxin Technology named as the unwitting provider of essential circuit boards, according to the article. Since Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24, 2022, the two countries have been at war. This latest development casts doubt on the efficacy of international sanctions that sought to limit Russia's access to technologies utilized in the conflict. The efficacy of international controls and the larger geopolitical dynamics could be profoundly affected by the disclosures regarding the technical assistance Russia receives. A Russian tank, the T-90M, allegedly uses sensor technology developed by Wuhan Gaoxin Technology, even though its parent firm has been subject to U.S. sanctions since 2008. Wuhan Gaoxin Technology nonetheless managed to make it to the 2023 ISC West trade event at the Venetian Expo in Las Vegas. In order to keep its foothold in the infrared detector industry on a global scale, the company is actively participating in international events. As an additional arm of Wuhan Gaoxin's business, Global Sensor Technology is a frontrunner in the market for thermal imaging detectors, whether they're cold or not. Despite the company's boasts of serving clients all over the globe, it has set up a website specifically for the Russian market, which raises suspicions about any connection to Russian military operations. In the meanwhile, with drone warfare being the deciding factor in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, Russia's reliance on Chinese drone technology has increased. Drone production relies heavily on sensor technologies, computer numerical control (CNC) machines, which are crucial for high-precision metal milling in military manufacturing, have seen a considerable uptick in Chinese shipments to Russia, as reported by the Financial Times, FT, on January 2. The shipment volume has reportedly grown by a factor of 10 since Russia's invasion. A stronger military-industrial cooperation between Russia and China is evident in the $6.5 million to $68 million increase in CNC tool shipments. The two countries are becoming closer due to their shared political goal of countering American dominance, according to Michael Raska, an assistant professor at Singapore's S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies, who spoke with FT. Russia has recognized China as an essential supplier after sanctions prevented it from purchasing machinery from Europe. CNC tools were previously a key import for Russia, but due to EU regulations, Moscow has seen a dramatic decline in its imports. Russia, according to analysts, is trying to get its hands on these tools from countries that aren't subject to international sanctions. For comment, Newsweek contacted Wuhan Gaoxin Technology. Concerns over Russian drone manufacturers' capacity to evade international sanctions were raised in a Swiss report dated November 15. According to research conducted by Swissinfo, a branch of the Swiss Broadcasting Corporation, Russian manufacturers have persisted in sourcing critical parts for UAVs from countries affiliated with the West, such as Switzerland, the United States, and Taiwan. At the helm of the Wall Street Journal's international affairs coverage is Yaroslav Trofimov. The Russian invasion and the War of Independence in Ukraine is the subject of his new book, from which this piece is excerpted. Dmytro Kuleba, the foreign minister of Ukraine, was returning home from New York on a Turkish Airlines flight when Russia invaded. "Welcome to the White House," he was told by President Biden. As far as he was concerned, it was like receiving a stage for cancer diagnosis. The kind greetings and sympathetic grins were intended to be parting ways for him and his nation. When February 2022 rolled along, nobody in Washington or any of the European capitals thought Ukraine would make it. William J. Burns, head of the Central Intelligence Agency, had traveled clandestinely to Kiev at Biden's behest to alert Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to the fact that Russia had plotted his assassination. They spoke about the physical liquidation of our leadership, about the creation of filtration and concentration camps, stated Alexei Danilov, Zelensky's national security advisor. So, what are our options? We repeatedly demanded that you arm us. However, they failed to provide us with any firearms. Even though the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv was closed in preparation for the invasion, armaments like Javelin anti-tank missiles were shipped with much fanfare. But there were surprisingly few, just around 90 Javelins, according to Danilov. Former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who was also informed about the futility of the Ukrainian cause, had already authorized a heavier shipment of approximately 2,000 NLAW missiles, despite internal concerns. But even so, those were guerrilla tactics, not normal warfare, adapted to their weaponry. Gen. Valery Zaluzhny and the Ukrainian military command had previously kept Kyiv's war plans under wraps, and not only from Russia. Washington and numerous high-ranking Zelensky government officials were unaware of Zaluzhny's plan. A senior Pentagon official informed me later that they were skeptical of Ukraine's resistance because they had not shared any information about their plans or preparations with them. And what they did tell us about their plans and preparations was pure military deceit. Russian President Vladimir Putin had warned Western countries not to meddle, and the rapidity of Russia's advance shocked them. Among many such contacts, Johnson offered to help the Ukrainian president organize for his escape. As an example, Johnson mentioned the precedent of the Polish government in exile that was created in London following the Nazi and Soviet invasions of Poland in 1939 as a possible model for the establishment of a Ukrainian government in exile in London. Instead, Zelensky requested weaponry. Perhaps due to its rich history, Poland stood out as the sole nation that did not succumb to despair during these early hours. On the day of the invasion, February 24, Kuleba rode shotgun on his connecting aircraft to attend a meeting of Poland's National Security Council. Polish officials were informed by NATO intelligence that the Ukrainian state was about to disintegrate quickly, as were the governments of other NATO allies. Warsaw persisted, though. Polish forces promptly dispatched multiple truckloads of heavy weaponry and ammunition. According to Kuleba, all the facts spoke against us at the time, therefore the Poles trusted in us more intuitively than fact-based. Other European capitals have a very different vibe. The Ukrainians were not being given any opportunities, according to Johnson. If this is going to happen, the best thing is that maybe it should happen quickly, a senior advisor to German Chancellor Olaf Scholz told him at the time. The day before the invasion, Putin gave a speech in which he warned unfathomable repercussions for the West if they attempted to assist Kyiv. The White House's #1 goal throughout the war has been to avoid crossing Russia's red lines and sparking a nuclear showdown between NATO and Moscow. To a large degree, Putin's reprimands were effective. Later on, when it would have been most effective to provide Ukraine with Western-made capabilities, the US and its allies refrained. They also forbade Kyiv from employing Western-made weaponry to attack Russian military installations. In the second year of the war, when many Western systems eventually did arrive, Russia had already fortified its defenses, organized hundreds of thousands of troops, and shifted its industry to war footing. The Ukrainians lost their finest chance for an immediate and decisive triumph. In July 2022, I visited Zelensky at his imposing office in Kyiv. After surviving the first Russian assault on Kyiv, Ukraine was losing soldiers as Russia redirected its attention to the eastern area of Donbass, where the conflict started in 2014. The Biden administration and Western allies, inspired by Kyiv's military prowess, had recently begun supplying Ukrainian soldiers, who were severely outnumbered, with artillery from Western nations. It was crucial because the Soviet standard ammunition that Ukraine had been using to fend off the Russians in the area surrounding Kyiv was nearly exhausted. However, concerns about Moscow's reaction led to the outright rejection of Ukrainian requests for Western tanks, battle vehicles, combat aircraft, or Patriot air defenses. Glaringly old, chronically exhausted, and with a grimace on his face was Zelensky. I last saw him at a banquet in an art space in Kyiv 2.5 years ago. The ex-comedian gave a brief stand-up routine and avoided uncomfortable questions regarding his connection to Trump by directing them at his honored guest, the actress Robin Wright, House of Cards president Claire Underwood, whom he repeatedly referred to as the real president. Gone were the days of flashy smiles, dazzling eyes, and trying too hard to win over the crowd. Zelensky brought up the terrible harm that Russia caused to the Ukrainian people again and time again. The number of recorded deaths was a small fraction of the actual number of deaths, he pointed out. In the middle of a city, there was an explosion, and 11 individuals have gone missing. I don't understand. What this says is that these people are completely gone. He made an animated gesture with his hands. Kids devoid of limbs, children vacant of head. According to Zelensky,